Ever wish you had someone to tell you the truth about what it takes to run a successful business and live a fulfilling life? Well, amiguita, you've come to the right place. So grab your favorite cafecito or cocktail, your courage, and let's get to work. I'm Jenna Borges, a therapist, business strategist, mindset coach for entrepreneurs, and a feisty Latina from Miami. And I'm determined to teach you the exact tools you need to stop settling and start kicking some serious derriere. What do you say? Are you in? Then let's get started. Welcome to Latinas Empowering Latinas podcast. One of the conversations that I've been promising to have for a really long time is something called an ICA, which is an ideal client avatar. Some people use it, the terminology ideal community avatar. I personally prefer ideal client, and I'll explain why. It is a marketing term. The reason that an ideal client avatar is so important is it helps you with your language, with your marketing, with your website, with your professional profile, whether it's LinkedIn or Psychology Today. It helps with your messaging. If you're doing an email list, it helps with the language in your email list. If you're creating a course, it helps with really nailing down who you're speaking to. If you're creating a sales page, if you're even creating a clothing store website, you really have to be super clear on your ideal client avatar. An ideal client avatar is the person that you want to serve or the person that you love to serve. And the biggest mistake that I find with businesses, whether it is product or service based, whether it's a private practice, or whether it is a clothing store, is the lack of clarity on who they are serving. Mistake number one is you cannot serve everybody. If you're talking to everybody, you're talking to nobody. What does that mean? If you want the goal of your store or your practice to be, I'm helping everybody, your messaging is going to be diluted. I have this conversation. I'm telling you, I've worked with therapists. I work with clothing store owners. I've worked with graphic designers, website designers, social media branding. I've worked with massage therapists. I've worked with school counselors. I have worked with Disney travel agents. And the same thing happens over and over again. There is a lack of clarity to your ICA. So the chances are, if your business is not growing, or if it is not growing as fast or as well as you'd like, guaranteed your messaging is off. And that means that you are not clear on your ICA, the person that you are trying to serve. So there's two things. There's ICA and there's niche that are critical foundations. And I teach this in my course, Private Practice Blueprint, and for people that are not therapists, Business Marketing Blueprint. And we go into detail as to what that is, what it means. And I'm going to give you a quick Cliff Notes version of what that means. I'm going to actually share with you my ideal client. I need you to be clear on, I almost want you to name this person, right? It could be somebody that you know that you've worked with in the past that you love to work with. And if it's not, you can make up your own name, right? Another hesitation I have when I'm talking about this is most people say, well, I don't want to discriminate. I don't want to leave anybody out. I don't want to lose my chances of reaching more people. I don't want to isolate myself. Something else that you have to remember is just because you're being super clear on your ICA does not mean that you need to verbally share specifically who you're helping. But you yourself need to know, almost like you're writing to your best friend. It has to be your best customer or the most ideal person that you want to work with. And I'll give you some examples. Most people want to say they have a hard time kind of visualizing somebody. That's the goal of having a name for your ICA. That is huge because that's the first thing you need to identify. Male, female, non-binary, however it is, you need to identify what that is because there are going to be different goals and different pain points for that individual. Different life circumstances, different struggles, different visions of life, different ways that they operate, different ways that they think. The deeper and depending on the industry that you get, the better clarity you will have. I want you to give this person a name. I want you to decide how old they are. Here's somewhere else people get stuck. Once we get even past the gender piece, 20 to 60 people will say, okay, The problem with this is if you're trying to help all women, so we're going to walk through this. Pretend it's women and they're 20 to 60. Well, somebody who's 20 is probably still in college if they're going to school or they're working. They're probably not married. They may or may not have kids, but again, depending on, these are the things that you want to think about. If they do have kids, they're brand new moms usually. If somebody's in their 30s, they might be in a committed relationship or married. They may or may not have kids. If they have kids, it's either their first or their second. By the time, let's say mid 30s, right? Like 35. At this point, if they do have kids, they're probably preschool kids or elementary school kids. If they're in their 40s or 45, it's probably middle school or high school. The goals that they have are different, right? So new moms are trying to get some sleep and shower and kind of make it. Mothers of young kids are trying to like organize their lives and find time for themselves. Mother of older kids are probably battling a little bit of boundary setting and boundary pushing and a little bit of teenage attitude. If you're in your 40s and you have a college student, you're probably in the empty nest syndrome. Do you see how with one individual, women, when you say 20 to 60, you can't even talk to them directly because the goal is to be able to talk to them so your ICA feels like you're talking directly to them. My favorite compliment ever, and my favorite compliment for my clients to get, is when they say, I feel like you were speaking directly to me. I felt like you were in my head. That is one of the most important things that there is to be aware of. How does this impact your profile, your website? Because you're going to get detailed, right? So if you are working with a brand new single mom, then you're going to say, hey, I know your days are long and your nights are longer. I know you're not getting rest. I know you're really tired. You probably don't have time to eat healthy. You're taking care of somebody else all by yourself. You don't have support. If you're talking to somebody who's in college and isn't married yet, you're saying, I know you're up all night trying to balance learning, studying, writing papers, and trying to trickle in some fun time. Or you're really struggling with balancing learning and having fun in your social life. If somebody's an empty nester, then you are talking about, I know it must be really hard. You've dedicated your entire life to your kids, and now it's just you or you and your spouse, and it feels really empty in your house. Now you're trying to redefine what your life is looking like, what you want to do with it, or you're kind of reintroducing yourself to your partner, and that's hard. If somebody's in their 60s, they're probably trying to or close to retirement. So again, I know that you're trying to reinvent who you are. Who are you after retirement? What are your roles and your goals because you've dedicated your entire life to your career or to working? This is just one example of how you cannot say 20 to 60. I want you to pick an actual number. My ICA is 34. My ICA is a female. She's a first-gen Latina. And why is that for me? So does that mean that I only work with first-gen Latinas? No, that means that I identify with them. They're the women that I'm passionate about working with. I can relate to them because I can share in their story. I know their feelings. I can relate to different cultures and growing up differently and being the first in your family to do a lot of things. So for me, that is super specific as to who I aim to support. Does this mean that I don't support people that are not first gen or that are men or that are different cultures? Absolutely not. I help everybody. But when I am speaking to my ideal client, the content I create, the language that I use, my social media information, my posts, my emails, my podcast episodes, they're all dedicated to supporting that 34-year-old career-driven woman that is determined to have a successful business and be in control of her schedule and her time and her salary because she doesn't want to hit a ceiling. She doesn't want anybody else to tell her how and when to work. She doesn't want anybody else to tell her how much she should make. And if you're saying, oh my God, that's me, that's because I've been really clear on what the goals are for that person too. So you want to know the name, the age. You want to know what career they're in. You can't just say they are in, again, we'll make this up. You can't just say they're in community mental health. No, where are they? What are they doing? They're working for an agency that doesn't appreciate them, or they're working for a school and they have a lot of roles and they know that they want to be able to help the people they were meant to serve, but on their terms without restrictions or red tape. Depending on what industry there is also going to talk about the hardships that they face. Whether or not they're married or they're divorced or they're widowed, again, that's another very specific thing that you can identify with and talk to. Where they live, or do they live in the city or the country? And more specifically, what city or country? For me, my ICA ended up being a licensed marriage and family therapist, even though I'm a social worker. And she ended up being in California because a lot of the people that I have felt and have helped have been in California. For me, it is a first-gen Mexicana in California who is 34, licensed marriage and family therapist, and she is determined to be her own boss, have her own business, and is determined to be the first in her family to succeed and call her own shots. And she is breaking generational cycles of emotional trauma. And this is part of her journey. That is how specific that is. Now, do I say that specifically? No, I'm not Mexican. I'm not from California, but I've been able to really fine tune through the people that I've worked with, the type of energy and passion that I want to tap into. I started off really wanting to work with other Cuban Americans. You're going to constantly be testing your language, your marketing. And there are some industries or some spaces where, for me, I find that people that are much younger than me, and I always get the generations wrong, feel like they can do everything on their own. They don't want to pay for anything. They want to figure it on their own. They feel like they can get things easier and for free. Well, that's not my ICA. My ICA is willing to invest in herself, is determined to do it right, wants to find someone that looks and sounds like her, who understands her struggles and her journey, and who is willing to invest in herself and her business because they see the potential for growth and they know that they want someone to walk beside them and to lead them and guide them into creating their own dreams. They are the hero of their own story. This is vital. With the clarity that you have with your ICA, it is pivotal that they understand that you are working for them. I can talk all day about ICA. So essentially, you need to be super clear on who you're serving. You have to figure out gender, location, career, marital status, degree, goals, pain points. The more you generalize, the more your language and your messaging will be diluted and you will be missing out on people. Because guess what? There are billions of people in this world. And even if you are targeting a small percentage, there is still no way that you'd be able to completely serve that population on your own. And when you're being clear on who you want to serve, you're still going to attract people that don't hit the mark on your ICA because you're going to be showing up genuinely and authentically. And word of mouth grows and you will attract other people. But you have to start small in order to grow. It is baby steps in order to build a good foundation for your business. Now, I go super in depth with this when I work with my clients one-on-one, and most importantly, through my course that walks visually and gives you steps. That is finally the episode I've been promising you for months on ideal client avatar and why it is so important in your business. It will be a game changer. Your homework is to work through your ICA. And if you visit the website page for today's episode, I have a gift for you to help work through your ICA. So grab that free resource and gift from me to you at janessaborges.com/42 for episode 42. Until next time. Thank you so much for joining me today. It's always such an honor to speak to you. If you loved today's episode, I would love and be so grateful if you left a review. So let me know what was your greatest takeaway, any aha moments, and how you were inspired. I'd love to give you a shout out in a future episode. Until next time, amiguita.